Chapter 3. A Night of Screams. That night, the moon hung low over Amuka, pale and swollen like a watchful eye. The air was heavy, humid, and unnervingly still. Even the usual croak of frogs by the stream seemed to have been swallowed by silence. Obina lay on his raffia mat, staring at the cracked ceiling of his grandmother's hut. He couldn't sleep. His mind kept replaying the sight of those carved trees, the warm spirals under his fingertips, and the way the forest had seemed to close around him. From outside came the faint creak of wood, the sound of the wind teasing a half-shut door. But the wind was barely moving. Then, somewhere in the far distance, a faint cry cut through the night. At first, Obina thought it might be a bird, but no bird made a sound like that. It was too sharp, too human. He sat up. The cry came again, this time closer, high-pitched and desperate. Then it broke into a scream that ripped straight through the stillness of the village. His grandmother bolted upright beside him. "Stay inside," she ordered, her voice trembling. She reached for the wooden staff she kept by the wall. More noises followed. Hurried footsteps, shouts, the barking of dogs that suddenly turned to yelps of fear before being abruptly silenced. Somewhere in the darkness, something large moved, breaking through dry branches with deliberate, heavy steps. Obina crept to the small window slit and peered outside. Torches flickered in the distance, their light darting erratically as men ran toward the edge of the village. But none went near the path to the forest. A sudden knock, loud and urgent, rattled their door. His grandmother hesitated before unlatching it. Neighbor Mama Ifioma stood there, her wrapper loose, her face pale. "They say it's back," she whispered. "An animal is dead, drained. Not a drop of blood left." Obina's grandmother muttered a prayer under her breath, then turned to him. "Do you see now why I warned you? This is how it begins." Obina's pulse quickened. "What begins?" She didn't answer, only bolted the door again. But Obina could still hear fragments of voices outside. The shadows. Last time it took more than goats. Don't let the children out after dark. In the small hours before dawn, the village grew restless with whispers and the muffled sounds of people pacing in their huts. Obina lay awake, his ears straining for every noise. Just before first light, he heard it, the faint sound of something dragging along the dirt road, slow and heavy, stopping briefly outside their hut. He held his breath. Then, as suddenly as it came, the sound moved on. When morning finally arrived, the news spread quickly. The dead goat had been found in the clearing near the stream. Its eyes were wide open, its body intact but cold, and the blood, all of it was gone. Chief Abadike called an emergency meeting in the square. The entire village gathered, the air thick with fear. The chief's deep voice carried over the crowd. "We must be calm. This is a passing misfortune, nothing more." But his eyes darted toward the forest, just for a second, and Obina caught it, the flicker of unease he was trying to hide. And then Mama Yudechi, the herbalist, stepped forward from the crowd. Her voice was low but carried clearly. "This is no passing misfortune. The debt is stirring again." A ripple of murmurs passed through the villagers. Obina's stomach tightened. Debt? What debt? He didn't know it yet, but the answer would be more dangerous than the shadows themselves. Underscore. Chapter 4. Ngozi's Confession. 3 days had passed since the scream and the goat's death, but the village still moved as if walking under a cloud. Doors shut earlier. Children no longer played far from home. Even the market women spoke in clipped sentences, glancing toward the forest as if afraid the trees were listening. Obina hadn't been able to shake the feeling that Chief Abadike knew more than he was saying. And Mama Yudechi's words, "The debt is stirring again," looped in his mind like an unfinished riddle. That afternoon, Obina was sitting by the edge of the stream, sharpening his slingshot, when he heard footsteps approaching on the soft grass. It was Ngozi. Her face was pale, her eyes darting as if making sure no one had followed her. "Obina," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something." But you must promise not to tell anyone, especially your grandmother." Obina frowned. "What is it?" She sat beside him, her hands twisting the hem of her wrapper. For a while, she didn't speak, just stared at the slow-moving water. Then she whispered, "I've seen him." "Seen who?" "The Watcher." Obina almost laughed, but the seriousness in her tone stopped him. "Ngozi, that's just a story parents tell, too." "It's not just a story," she snapped, her voice shaking. "It was last year, during the Yam Festival. I had gone into the forest to gather firewood before the dancing began. I didn't go far, only to the place where the ground is damp and the air smells of salt. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, too heavy to be a person's." She took a deep breath. When I turned, he was standing there, tall, taller than anyone in the village. He wore long, tattered robes that dragged on the ground. His face was hidden in a hood, but I could feel his eyes on me. Cold, watching, breathing. Obina tried to mask his unease. And then, I froze. My basket slipped from my hand. He started moving toward me. Not fast, but steady, like he knew I couldn't run far. I screamed. And then, she swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. He was gone. Just gone. Like the shadows swallowed him. The hairs on the back of Obina's neck prickled. "Did you tell anyone?" "No. Who would believe me? They'd say I was making up stories like the elders do." "But Obina," she leaned closer, lowering her voice to almost a whisper. "When Mama Yudechi said the debt was stirring, I knew. He's back, and he's not here for animals this time." A cold wind stirred through the tall grasses, though the sky was cloudless. Obina's hand tightened on his slingshot. He wanted to tell her it was all in her head, that the Watcher was just a village myth, but deep down, the memory of that figure he'd glimpsed on the forbidden path wouldn't let him. From across the stream came the distant thud of a drum, the signal that the evening meeting in the square was about to begin. But to Obina, the sound felt more like a warning than a call.